Welcome back. This is the second episode of Resale versus New Launch Condo, which is better investment. So we talk about a few things in the first episode. Okay, so we talk about the pros and cons of resale versus new launch, which is better, which is not. Of course, we do a very neutral way. And we also touch a little bit on the financial analysis and investment perspective. Okay, so on that part, what we talk about is that we break down the Parktown average PSF and also the price of a 2.5 million condo 3-bedroom. So how much you're gonna down pay? Okay, so there's two portions. One is down payment part. Okay, that is 724,100. If you forgot this, you can refer back to the first episode that we talked about it. And of course, the second part is the monthly mortgage, 7,900. So the first episode, we focus on how much we should earn to be able to afford this monthly mortgage of 7,900, right? So we also give a few pointers. Okay, so based on the TDSR 55% rule that you cannot borrow more than 55%. So your take-home income, or rather your gross income as a household, should be about 15,000. So minus away CPF is about 13,600. Okay, and minus away your CPF contribution. Okay, then so what you're gonna do is that you're gonna pay about 6,400 in cash for your mortgage. Okay, so your 13,600 take-home pay minus 6,400, you should have about 7,200 as disposable income. So with that, based on our client's profile and average, our family, their family expenses is about 4,200. Okay, so they have a surplus of $3,000. Yeah. So with a family income of $13,600, I think that's not an issue for most people.
And so that's a typical perspective you will hear from either a loan mortgage broker or the property agent. So we're going to tell you and show you the perspective of finance bros and the financial perspective, right? So apart from obviously understanding that your income, if it's based on this number and based on TDSR, you could afford. I mean, there are also other things that is just as important. So if you want to take the entire financial perspective, then you might as well take the whole piece and not just a part of it. So while MAS sets for this thing called TDSR, I'm not sure if you have heard about a previous episode, but if you haven't, you should tune in the previous episode about this thing called Basic Financial Planning Guideline. It was actually something that it's out there on the internet, LIA, and MAS, they count with this number. So there's also things that you are supposed to do, such as protecting your financial risk, and they also tell you should not spend ideally more than 15% of the take-home pay on that. And obviously, you should also minimally invest at least 10% of your income for your future goals, such as your retirement and many other financial goals you might have. So if you actually look at the surplus that we just gave in the scenario, right, I think the 4,200 family expenditures perhaps haven't included things like insurance and any other form of investment.
It's just family expenses.
So if we base it on the definition of 15,000, take home is 13,000.
Right.
And let's assume you take 10% of that 13,600, right, which is $1,360 a month to do your insurance planning. It could cover things ranging from your health insurance, accident, to all the way anything more fancy and comprehensive, such as your life plan that covers, typical death, disability, and critical illnesses. Then you're gonna take another 10%, possibly, which is another 1,360 a month to invest into your future for retirement and stuff like that. Then the real question is, with $3,000, can you do enough or not? Based on this, it's like saying you're going to spend at least $2,700.
So then with $300.
$200. So then, and I believe 4,200 hasn't include things like your occasional giftings, ang pao, and obviously things like travel. So I think if you want to think about buying a property, and if it's just strictly based on the MAS TDSR rules set forth, and then you can say, I can afford it. Then the real question is, would you be able to afford it while still being sound in terms of the holistic approach of looking at your finances? Because, owning assets is important, but before you have enough assets, you want to make sure that, and before your liabilities run out, you want to make sure you're covered sufficiently, in terms of financial planning. You want to also obviously diversify your portfolio in terms of investments to other areas of things that you can go into, such as, investing in the stock market, for example. So, and plus, the whole point of saving and buying a house and increasing your assets is not to chain a metal ball to your feet. It's, to help you to grow asset-wise in the years to come. You have more to enjoy, but it is going to compromise your lifestyle right away, and it's going to take away a lot of your enjoyment. I'm not too sure if it's sound anymore to really go into this. In my personal perspective, I wouldn't want that because I want to also have the luxury of being able to travel with my, with my
Right.
family. Because as you age, I don't know if you agree with me. I think material-wise is one aspect of things. Maybe a lot of people still fancy, but experience is definitely something that as I age, I really cherish a lot, especially traveling and spending time with my loved ones, for example. So, I think to take this away in the form of owning a home is what I don't really want. Yeah, but you could do otherwise for as long as, like I say, the entire holistic approach is sound, that's okay.
Yep. So I think ultimately we feel that 15,000 household income is a little bit stretched to own a property like that. I mean, we are not touching even the down payment portion. Yeah. So we also don't want you, to just achieve your near-term goal, but you forgot about long-term goal. Yeah, so I think ultimately everything, all the assets, you still must dabble a little bit on here.
Yeah.
So just not focus just everything on one asset.
But don't get us the wrong idea thinking that we are advising against buying property.
No,
that's not our aim anyway.
Yeah.
We're just trying to tell you in a very holistic financial perspective on how you should look into an asset like this. And when do you really get it, which is really today's episode about. We're going to talk about who are these people, who is really more palatable for such an entry. Right. If I had to really buy a $2.5 million house, who should be looking at such houses?
Right.
Yeah, maybe someone can share more with us.
So now we will touch about the down payment portion. So remember, the down payment includes the 25% down payment, okay, the buyer's stamp duty, BSD, and the legal fee. So all in all, the down payment portion is about $722,000. Okay, so who can afford this $7,220? Okay, so in our very simple way to categorize things, okay, we see it, there's three groups of people buying property. Okay, first, of course, is the new homeowners. Okay, they get married, they don't want to wait too long, they just get into a private property. Okay, the second one is that they are probably HDB upgrader. They decided that maybe we should, lifestyle upgrade. Yeah, so we upgrade to a private property. And the third group of people, they are like the third property purchase people. So they have already upgraded their lifestyle and they just want to go move on to the next phase of life. So that are considered a third property purchase. Okay, so we talk about the first group, the new homeowners. Okay, so the new homeowners, usually they probably 20 plus to 30s lah, we feel lah, yeah, or if not, probably around our age, they dated people who they probably focus too much on other things before they decided that maybe I want to invest some time in relationship.
And realistically speaking, that also really means, right, that you are those people who fall under the above income ceiling. So you cannot buy BTO, and hence you're buying a private property. Of course, you can always go back to open market, right, your resale, HDB, but these are the group of people who also can look into a private condo purchase, for example.
So we do it an easier way lah. So people who are at our age, they earn a decent income, and then their CPF also has accumulated a sum of money. So their OA should be around 200,000 based on what we have experienced on the ground. So 200,000 on one person, 200,000 on the other person, husband and wife lah. Okay. Then which means that they have 400,000. So the down payment of 700,000, they have 400,000, so the rest 300,000 is in cash. Okay, so this is the first group of people. Okay, then we move on to the second group of people, who is a HDB upgrader. Okay, so for HDB upgrader, it's a little bit different. They have their proceeds from their BTO. Yeah, so they dated earlier and then they get married and they apply their BTO. They waited for a while and then the BTO is ready, and they waited a little bit longer. 5 years later, they sell their BTO. So example, so if you have bought a BTO probably 300,000 in the last 5 years, and then you will gain about 300,000. So your 300,000 gains from the first BTO you have, okay, plus a little bit principal that you paid to your BTO, that's about 400,000. So 400,000, okay, you have 700,000 in your the down payment. So 700 minus 400, that's about 300 plus thousand. Of course, you have some CPF accumulated. Of course, you can also offset a little bit there. But usually not that much lah, because you're already still paying the BTO that previously you have. So these two group of people, at the end of the day, they will still have about 300 plus thousand of
a gap.
They have to pay lah. So they have to find ways to fund these 300,000. Okay, and then we have the last group of people, the third property purchase. Okay, so the third property purchase group of people, they are one step ahead of the other people lah, the other groups. Okay, so but the thing about them is that they are not young anymore. So they are probably in their 40s. Okay, so what that means, it means that the loan tenure, they cannot loan the max to 35 years.
Technically,
there's some arrangement.
Technically, is you cannot lah. But there are other ways to do it differently.
Yeah. So we say that the normal way lah. Okay, so the normal way, if let's say they're in their 40s, right, then likely they can only loan for 20 to 25 years.
Basically, you take 65 minus your current age, that's the maximum tenure you can leverage on.
Yeah. So by saying that, of course, your monthly mortgage will be higher. That's another story. Okay, but so now we focus on down payment. So what it means is that, okay, imagine a scenario that the person buy a property, buy a BTO first, and then after he upgraded to a private property. So the private property, probably in 2019, he bought a private property, and then 5 years later he decided to sell, which is about this year. Yeah, this year. So he earned about $500 PSF then. I mean now. Yeah. So they buy a property, the property gained $500 PSF. So his earning from this private property or condo is about 500,000. Okay. And then plus the proceeds or the equity or the gains from the BTO, that's about 200,000 then. So he will have about 700,000 proceeds to pay the down payment for the park town. So by saying that, what we analyze is that in three different groups of people, the third property purchase people is likely to be able to afford the 2.5 million property without forking out too much of cash, without liquidating most of the assets lah. Yeah. So this is what we feel. Okay. Of course, there's a few more things that you can consider in terms of financial analysis or investment perspective lah. Like example, the historical data, how much resale or new launch appreciate over time. Because we are financial advisor lah, so we don't have all the data to show you. So if you want us to link up with you for a property agent, a good property agent, you can also let us know. I mean, we can also collaborate with other agents, you all
should speak to someone that you can trust, so that they can also share some lights on their expertise in this field lah.
Yeah. So that's appreciation over time, and of course we can talk about rental yield and demand and all that lah. I mean, we also don't have the data, so this is some factors that you should also consider: rental yield and demand. And I think last but not least, of course, is the maintenance and renovation cost lah. I think that's about all that you need to know, whether it makes sense for you to buy into new launch or resale.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what we feel is that no matter which asset you touch into or you decided to go into, I think affordability is the main key point lah. Like what I think Jimmy mentioned about the monthly cash flow. If you're earning 15,000, your surplus 3,000, haven't include all the insurance payment, haven't include this and that. Whether you really can live a very stress-free monthly kind of, like for example, if you're not happy with your work right now, can you tell your boss that I don't want to work anymore, then you can find another job. Can you do that? Or if not, you are really chained down by a metal chain like your house. You have to pay for a rental.
I mean, all this affordability always falls back on a sound financial planning blueprint lah. Right. And that's exactly what we specialize in. So I think by the definition of affordability, we don't really mean just meeting the TDSR or having enough down pay or having enough quantum to loan from the bank. We meant in other aspects, again, in a holistic approach, would I be able to still cover myself from all these financial risks? Would I still be able to invest and diversify into other different asset classes? And can I still have a lifestyle that I envision working so hard for So and if it's at a point where you have to consider selling and liquidate some of your investment assets, for example your shares, or if you're in a company that has options that they're giving you, and then you're thinking about liquidating them just to get into a property, and you might be liquidating a very big portion of it just to get into this, then I'm not too sure if this is a sound approach altogether, because by that definition, you are shifting all into this one asset class, and which may or may not really amount to much at the end of the day, because nobody can guarantee you, right? If you look at any investment platform, if anybody can tell you their guarantee, you better run away from them.
Scam.
So since in all asset classes there's certain risks involved, of course we can say property would have maybe a lower risk, but doesn't mean no risk lah. So I think it's still important for us to look at what's a good allocation ratio. If it's not a very big chunk of your own stock portfolio, for example, just to help you to down pay a bit. Yeah, why not? But there are also cases where I've heard people are advised to go on to take bridging loans.
Yeah.
Just to take a bit more loan from the bank just to pay enough down payment. I'm personally not very inclined towards something like that. If you are my client, I would have never advised you to do something like that.
Right, me too.
Yeah. Saying that, it is ultimately still one way people are doing it out there.
Right.
So I think if you have a lot of trouble understanding whether you should or you shouldn't, then the best thing is to talk to a planner that you can trust.
Right.
Yeah. And if you don't have someone to go to, we'll be more than happy to receive a text or call from you guys. We can definitely help to advise you from then on.
Yep.
Yeah.
Agree. Yeah. So we touched a little bit, or rather, we touched a lot more than just about numbers. Affordability is a key. And we also want to touch on this thing called the common myths and misconception. Yeah, people always say, okay, so one of the reasons why people buy new launch is also, it's like buying Toto like that. It's like sure win one, sure gain one. It's not even Toto, it's like a sure thing. But that's also based on history.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's not always so. I think there must be some triggering events that will make the past, like all the new launch gain so much. Yeah, moving forward, we are not very sure what will happen, whether is there any new cooling measures and whatsoever not, right? That will change the market as well. But what we can say is that property is still an asset. It's good to hold. Yeah, so ultimately what we feel that if let's say the new launch that you purchase is not earning a decent amount, are you okay to stay with it, or no choice you have to sell it because our monthly cash flow is not ideal state? Yeah, so ultimately that whatever you buy, you must be okay to stay with it at least to 5 to 7 years. You're not really straining on your monthly cash flow.
Especially if it's a consumption asset, right?
Yeah.
In this case, the scenario given, we're not saying that you're resale one and then expect
that's
cash buy another. That's an entire different topic altogether. We're talking about you having to buy this place, treat it like a home that you're gonna, raise your children and have your family raised in it. And at the same time, hopefully this property can make some money.
Right.
And if it's under such a scenario, then you have to be okay the fact that if your property don't make enough, it is a house at a place I prefer. So you don't feel like, wow, I'm caught into getting this property and then it's not appreciating as much as I hope. And you still be very happy staying in this house. Yeah.
Right. And we also heard about like resale condos not having good returns. This kind of myths and misconception. But in fact, on the real ground, what we see, actually some of the prime resale property actually grow and outperform new launches as well. Yeah. Ultimately, I think when the property market grow together, I think everybody grows together. Yeah. So, and new condos are always better. These are some of the things that we always hear from people. Yeah, new condos better. I mean, everything is new now, of course, it's better. But when you look at the older condos, they have also better things. Yeah, like it's bigger in space. Maybe it's very near to some good location.
Faster in transaction because you can buy and complete in the shorter time frame.
Yeah, so there's like audience, waiting for you, target audience waiting for you. Yeah, at better locations, all that. So I think so these are all the myths and misconceptions. So it's always to do your due diligence. Talk to your planner, talk to your agents. You know.
Everybody's different. You have to think of it that way. Someone who is a newlywed versus someone who has a 6-month-old child. If you have a 6-month-old child and you're hoping that you're buying a place that eventually can be near a primary school that you can enroll in, the last thing you want is to have this house only ready in I don't know how many years. Yeah. So it depends, right? I mean, we have seen how pandemic has prolonged and extended the completion date for many projects. I'm not saying pandemic can happen all the time, but we also would know what will happen next, right? So I think the key is to also be a bit more prudent. So if you are someone who needs a place definitely in a shorter timeline to fulfill that primary school enrollment, then obviously maybe resale might fit you better.
Yeah. So I think the last part for this podcast and this episode is about our personal opinion, our final verdict. So whether will we choose resale or new launch. Yeah. So maybe I start for myself. Okay, so we decided to touch more on our personal perspective in the coming season as well with different episodes. because we also invite the experts in their field to also touch about their own perspective. I think it's good to hear from both perspectives. Okay, so for me, whether to buy resale or new launch, in my personal opinion, I will choose resale. Yeah. So first and foremost, I find that I personally as a financial advisor, it's always the affordability. Yeah, I don't want to strain myself too much until I cannot experience the all the good things in life, like going overseas, all that. Yeah, so affordability is one issue. Okay. And resale, I have abundance of choices. Right. If let's say I really like Tampines a lot, right? Wow, Tampines, there's so many different condos. It's not only just tied down to Park Town, right? I can choose Treasures, which is launched in 2019. So that's not so far, it's still quite new, like 5-6 years. I think everything is still new. And by choosing Treasures, if I go see on Property Guru, a 3-bedroom, 3-bath is only like 1.9 million. 1.9 million as compared to a 2.5 million. Wow, that's a lot of difference, man. That's like
600,000.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. And down payment is also 200,000 difference. Yeah, and the monthly mortgage is also 2K per month. I free up 2K per month, and I can use that money to so much more other things. So I think whether I can afford, and I think another thing that most people don't touch on when I look at podcasts or that is that we are self-employed. Nobody talk about self-employed. Everybody assuming that everybody has CPF. Yeah, self-employed planning and CPF or employed person planning is really different. So when we buy property, it's all in cash. Or of course we top up our own CPF, but that's also our cash. So a lot of planning should be done based on affordability. So that's one point, affordability. Okay, certainty. I like certainty. I don't want to, like Jimmy case, go to a property in the morning and then I forgot about the night time. Wow, people are actually cooking at the hawker center and I can smell all the things. Because I'm gonna live in there anyway, I don't want that to happen. So I can walk in, I can see whether I like it or not. I don't like it, I go for other stack. Different stack has different view, you see, different direction. So I like that certainty. Yeah, and I think the last thing that people, in terms of resale, I can shift in almost immediately. When I move from one place to another, I don't need to go to rental, to incur costs again. I don't need to shift my furniture, to what store hub and stuff like that. I can actually shift directly to the place when it's done. Yeah, so that's my point of view. I would prefer to get a resale flat. So how about Jimmy? What's your point of view?
I would obviously stand on the same side of things. Not to say that new launch is bad. Actually, I think new launch is just as good. It's just that when you think about the case of affordability, compromising lifestyle, and many other stuff, I think what would be more sensible for me, especially for a house that I buy to stay and treat as a home, I would obviously prefer a resale because by and large, it's a bit more affordable to buy a space that's bigger for family. And I think with that, it also really means I don't have to compromise more of my lifestyle. And I'm typically a bit more prudent and I ought to be as a financial advisor, right? So when we think about buying a house, cashing out from our previous property, I would want to make sure that I have enough, not just to down pay my next house, but to also buffer in some money, right, to cater in the case if interest rate fluctuation, or what if business no good, I'm not making enough money, I can still double on these large funds I have to cover all those months that I don't have enough, right, to pay my mortgage and stuff like that. And obviously I'm a bit more kiasu I want to still factor.
We have to.
I want to factor in the renovation cost and finishing also. So unless all these things points to me that I can do that without having to worry all these things and I can still do all these things, I probably wouldn't go into a new launch. Saying that, in the perspective of if I already have a home like that, a resale for example, and I do have enough money, maybe not enough to buy a three-bedder, but let's say enough to buy a two-bedder. Would I go into a new launch? I would possibly go into a new launch because I think the new launch obviously has a lot more to offer. And you can see that because the price is so expensive, we look at a $2.5 million three-bedder today at Parktown, for example. 3 years from now, how much is it going to be raised? And who can really afford buying some of this house? You can if you earn good income, right? But there's also a smaller fraction of people. So for those people who are newlywed and young family, you don't need a very big space. Actually, it will be more likely you can get a two-bedder at a lower quantum. So I do think the two-bedders for a new launch, it's always snatch up for a reason,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah,
it's low
it's
quantum,
affordable, yeah,
people
yeah.
can be going in with more affordability.
Right, right.
So I think saying that, like I say, if I own a home, a resale home, I still have enough to buy another. And of course, if it's me owning and then my spouse is free up from name lah, you know,
Right.
no ABSD.
So that's a
perspective,
different perspective, like investor and a person staying lah. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So if you're an investor, maybe buying a new launch can also be some of the things that you can
Yeah.
consider because it's new, and I think tenant also like, if it's
Yeah.
for rental, people like the new things.
Because one of the key thing I think is very important for us to look into this asset class is on income leverage lah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
it's not so much
definitely-
about the return in terms of like
Rent.
what the asset class can give you, because I mean I don't think property can give you the same kind of return like the stock market can.
Right.
But saying that, I don't think you will leverage so much as opposed to you leveraging a
Right,
mortgage
exactly.
from the bank
Yeah.
for buying house, right? You will not go and borrow more money to go
Yeah.
and trade yourself, right? But
Yeah.
with the house, you're more likely going to do so. So hence, based on this point, it just makes perfect sense for you to leverage the income when you're still young and able. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our personal opinion, I mean, for us is still the resale lah. I think that so this will be things moving forward in the format in terms of our podcast. So if you have any more feedbacks you have for us, we will launch to more platforms. Okay, so this is mainly on Spotify. You will see us more on YouTube, TikTok,
Yeah.
Instagram. Maybe we have Instagram account.
Yeah.
So we have more channels that you can give us some of your feedbacks and some other topics that you want to discuss lah. Yeah, that will be very grateful and helpful for us as well. So that's wrap up for this is the last part of our podcast. Anything you want to add on, Jimmy?
So before we sign off, since it's a topic about property, we hope we can collab with some of you guys from the property arena. Do drop us a call or text. Let us know how we can do this together so that we can provide very good insights for both our clientele really.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's all. Let us know your views, okay? Share with us some comments, subscribe, okay? That's all for us. Finance Bro signing off.
Okay.
Thank you.